I would rather be ruled by the U.S. than Russia. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, move. Okay, tell us why you agree. Everybody's agree or slightly. Tell us why you agree.
Probably I would say that like the U.S. is more freer than the Russian Federation is. There aren't any authoritarian moves by the government, or not that explicitly articulated moves that are against democracy that we see in Russia.
So political freedom is your main reason?
Yes.
Okay. And tell us why you agree.
I also agree because of political freedom as well. There are some historical there is some historical knowledge about this. We experienced Russian suppression, which wasn't good at all. And as we saw that the U.S. hegemony around the world is, in my opinion, right now, the best hegemony the world has ever seen because of the political values and the economic prosperity, which generally is brought by the system and the economy of the U.S.
So, if I'm understanding you correctly, that was pretty strong. How come you're not on the strongly agree?
Yeah, because you can't just make a blindfold about some serious issues in the U.S. as well. Like, democracy is not perfect there either, and also there are some also human rights violation, mostly abroad of U.S. And exploitation by big corporations, which show a dark side of this whole thing as well.
Okay, I'm going to come back to you and ask you who the corporations are exploiting. So you're on the slightly agree. Can you tell us why?
I'm really against one nation dominating the whole world, and this sentence is slightly implying that to me. So that's why I couldn't go to either side that strongly. But I mostly agree with the guys who said that if I had to choose between Russia and the US for historical reasons and from the political freedom side, I would choose most of the US. And I think in Europe and here in Hungary, we mostly get the best side of that is hegemony that the US has in the international relations.
Can you tell us one thing you like about the US, one thing you don't, one thing you like about the Russian Federation, one thing you don't?
Well, I like about the US that it supports the freedom of the markets, and so from an economic standpoint, I think it's universally the best we can go for. But it also has a negative aspects as well. But that's the first.
The markets have negative aspects.
If we liberalize the markets too much, then it can have a certain economic.
Like a monopoly, you mean?
Yeah, monopoly. Yeah, that there are market failures. We can talk about it as well. But that's the first thing that came into my mind. And what was the second?
One thing that you like about Russia, the Russian Federation, and one thing you don't.
Well, to be honest, it's very hard to think about what I like about the Russian Federation right now. But I would say that the patriotism can be respected.
Okay. Oh, the fact that the people like the government?
No, not the government, that they're proud to be Russian. That can have a certain positive aspect. But it's very hard to talk about that right now when the world and, of course, the Ukrainian people must feel the worst aspect of that.
One thing you like about the U.S., one thing you don't, and one thing you like about Russia, and one thing you don't. The Russian Federation, excuse me.
Yeah. So one thing I like about the U.S. is probably the freedom it gives the people who are living in each and every state of the country. But one thing I don't really like about it is the fact that it doesn't really have a social network, like a social healthcare system that can provide healthcare to those who can't afford it.
Okay. One thing you like about Russia, one thing you don't.
Okay, so
Russian Federation, excuse me.
Federation. I don't know. Like about the Russian Federation, not necessarily about the country, but about its people. I like their culture a lot. I think it's very unique and interesting. One thing I don't like,
What about their culture do you like? Like, give me a specific.
I don't know, like all kinds of cultural stuff that comes.
Music, food.
Music, yeah.
Okay.
Was like music came to my mind first. Also, the thing that I don't like about Russia is mostly its regime and how it functions.
The current government.
The current government, yeah.
And is it safe to say the head of the current government you don't like, without naming any names?
Yeah.
Begins with a P and ends in an N.
Yeah.
Okay. Give us an example of one thing you like about the U.S. and one thing you don't, one thing you like about Russia, one thing you don't.
All right. So what I don't like about U.S. is mostly the culture. What drills down sometimes seems a little bit shallow from here.
Like what?
Like this whole pop culture and like flexing and the icy stuff and like also the Hollywood movies, or like I don't know. I just can't.
What ISIS stuff?
Like just people like just flex with their rollies and stuff like that.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the terrorist group. Okay.
No.
Like, we don't have anything to do with that. Okay. Okay.
Not at all. So yeah, that's the thing I don't really like. Also the social network, but what I like is the supports democracy, and it's like it's supposed to be a free country. Yeah, and what I like about the Russian Federation, I was going to say culture and specifically literature. So I think Dostoevsky, for example, has he's such a genius and gives like you can feel that moral and that kind of a moral sentiment and depression, and like it gives a very, very good mirror of lots of people and lots of dilemmas and how people live their lives. So I really, really appreciate that culture. And what I don't like is right now, I could say a pretty obvious reason, but also I don't really like the Russian pride, what you mentioned as a good thing, because they always thought that they're the big bear. They are some okay. Sorry for the generalization, but a lot. At least this government thinks that they're somewhat entitled to a certain territory or like exceed their power and rule over some territories because they're Russians. They're the Russian government. They're historic and they're powerful.
Okay. So real quick, three final questions. Is there anything that would cause you to move more toward the neutral? And is there anything that would cause you to move more toward the strongly agree? Like, what would the United States have to do before you'd really, really want to be moved toward U.S. rule? And what would Russia really have to do before you really before you would move? Or you don't have to say anything at all.
Okay, so I would say that I would strongly agree with this sentence if there would be a social safety network in the U.S.
Okay. And what would the Russians have to do to push you the other way?
I'm not sure.
Okay. What would the U.S. have to do to move you over?
I agree with him, and I would add that both nations, both the Russians and the Americans, I think they have a very imperialistic view about the world, and that they are the center of it, and that the U.S. could change a little about that to make me move more toward the right.
And what specifically would that look like? Like, what would the U.S. need to do?
I would think about stop exploiting poor nations and stop selling that many arms to Africa and to the Middle East. And it was very funny because you said earlier that you have nothing to do with ISIS, but if you think about it historically, the US, it can be argued that the US had something to do about the emergence of radical extremism in the Middle East.
Okay. Yeah, because he was saying ISIS, and I thought he meant, like, we're promoting ISIS.
I know that you are not promoting ISIS right now,
Yeah.
but one could argue that the U.S. had actions in the years back that led to the emergence of ISIS.
Okay, okay. Anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I would just agree with him. I think the U.S. should stop these human right violations, which and also like the war in Iraq is questionable. And
Give me an
supporting-
example of a human right violation, like.
Yeah, for example, they are financing the Saudi government and also helping them actively selling them weapons which are forbidden by the UN to the Saudi government to them to take power in Yemen. There's no media coverage about that, but that's unacceptable, I would say. So like they're sort of cherry picking sometimes the human rights which they are defending and just forgetting about things they don't want to put a spotlight on. Yeah, so
So a more consistent human rights policy.
that's right. And the Russians, like, to change my mind. First of all, they should immediately close down this special operation, and yeah, just accept their place in the world, that they are not that much of a power now. Just try to integrate into the free market and accept that that's what we are. We don't want to be more with armed conflict and power. Just try to cooperate.
Okay, cool. Last question. Think about someone you love. Would you rather they live in the United States or Russia?
I'd rather they live in the United States.
U.S. as well.
It depends on the financial situation, but mostly U.S. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Any final comments or thoughts? All right, thanks, guys. Awesome. Really good. Really good. That was really, really thoughtful.